What's up, y'all? We're doing something different today. I got my rat with me because he really wanted attention, so here he is. Um, but we're going to be talking about how to kind of generally improve at the game and what we can do to kind of get better. So it's the beginning of the new season in December when I'm recording this, and I've already went up a couple of ranks in Platinum. If you have no problem getting out of Platinum and getting into Diamond, then you probably don't need to watch this video. But if you have issues getting out of Gold or getting out of Platinum and getting into some of those higher ranks in Diamond, then this might be the video for you. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is shotgunning effects. When you have Ash in your opening hand and you're playing against your opponent, one of the things that you need to realize that's super important to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is correct timing with hand traps. So hand traps are really powerful, but let's say my opponent activates Alabar. I see a lot of people Ash my Alabar, and I don't really think that's the correct move. I know that there's some people out there that would disagree with me, but Alabar can get us to search to another card like branded fusion or branded opening, but I much rather Ash the branded fusion because it sends cards from deck to grave. Like, you can Ash branded fusion. I much rather Ash the actual branded fusion or the branded opening. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, duh, but not everybody knows that. And when I'm actually playing Despia, branded Despia, most of the time I will summon Alabar as the bait to try to bait people into activating Ash or even activating Imperm, because sometimes they will Imperm, which that's another card that should be up here. Sometimes they will Imperm our Alabar instead of Imperming the big branded guy. Who's the big dude again? Lubellian, I believe. Because you can negate I don't want how to pin. You can negate the Lubellian. I wonder if I just search love if I can get him up here. But like, why would I try to stop this with my Imperm when I know they're going to go for this and then go for this, and I can stop the Lubellian instead? Like, being able to chain to the Lubellian effect and stop the Lubellian effect, obviously the better choice, which all kind of rolls back onto, when do you activate hand traps? Like, when do you activate your hand traps? When do you Imperm someone? When do you Ash someone? When do you Max C someone? And the correct answer to that question is always going to be at the choke point for the deck you're playing against. You never want to shotgun an Ash effect just because you have Ash, or just because you have Imperm, or just because you have Max C. And that's one of the things in Yu-Gi-Oh! That is kind of hard for some newer players to understand, or maybe some players that didn't always have hand traps or kind of getting back into the game. It's effectively managing your resources in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which brings us to our next point, which is resource management. Let's say I'm playing a floodgate deck, and I have a bunch of different floodgates in the back row. Let's say I'm running, I know not a lot of people run the Solemn Brigade anymore, but let's say I'm running the Solemn Brigade in the back row. And let's just say I have a bunch of traps. Like, I have 5 traps, but I might not have the Judgment. Do I want to necessarily set all my 5 traps to try to stop 5 things? Or do I want to set 3 of my traps because I know that there's a risk of me getting blown out? Because if you get blown out and you don't have anything to recover from that, and you don't last the turn, then you just essentially wasted 5 resources. But if you have something like a threatening roar or something to stop an attack, it might be a better idea to just set like 2 things to slow down your opponent and then set the roar, because if you get feather dusted or lightning stormed, it's just a better option to still have things to commit to board versus just having to depend on the top deck. Because you know, in Yu-Gi-Oh, sometimes you do get the top deck, but sometimes it's the top deck is a cruel mistress. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely say just timing and knowing when to stop your opponent. One of the things that I do for that, at least for like going back to the hand trap timing, or even for activating like regular trap cards or things that you're playing specifically in your deck to counter other things. Like a good example would be the token collector at the height of Sword Soul and Master Duel, where like pretty much everyone was just running the one token collector just because they could. Knowing when to activate those cards is important. So even if you're not planning on playing the deck, even if you like really dislike Sword Soul or whatever the deck is for that format, that's the dominant deck, it's still a good idea to look it up, see how it functions, maybe ask somebody that does play it for the format and say, hey, what hurts you? What hurts this deck? Like for a lot of people, let's just say, let's just use Flow as an example. If I'm playing against Flow and I'm playing zombies, I'm probably going to max out on the zombie world because now everything's a zombie, not a winged beast monster. And the Flow player can no longer tribute effectively because they would have to tribute for zombie monsters, and they don't have any of those. You know, it's just knowing what ratios to run in your deck, knowing when to activate things, and knowing what the choke point of your worst matchups are is how you're going to get to be a better player in the game. And ratios, which kind of brings us to our third point, ratios of cards is probably one of the most important things when you're deck building. And we're actually going to go over to my Sword Soul 10E deck for an example. And I'm going to explain why I'm running certain numbers of things. Obviously, I'm running 3 Ash right now because everything searches. And if I'm going second, I don't want my opponent to just have generic breakmyboard.exe. Same reason why I'm running 2 Maxi. Now you're probably saying, why aren't you running 3 Maxi? Well, Maxi is not always useful in every single matchup. But I still want to see it. So if I was running 1, I never see it enough. If I was running 3, I might see it too much. But if I'm playing against Eldritch and they're just doing like 1 or 2 summons, I'm not getting a lot of value for that Max C. So that's the reason why I would have 2 for a ratio, right? And so now you're seeing that, you know, running the 2 copies instead of 3 makes more sense. It clogs my hand less, and I'm being able to draw the cards that I actually need for the deck to function. And that's sort of the reason why, you know, when you first build a deck, you're probably going to go through a lot of different variants of the deck because you are going to have to get those ratios exactly right. Like, even if you look up, I'm going to use my buddy Junior, who topped nationals with Flunderies. Even if I go and look up my buddy Junior's deck, and he's running the perfect ratios for him, I might think something's too bricky for my playstyle, so I might cut a card. Like, he was running triple Book of Moon and Flow. I like to run 2 Book of Moon. So that's just a good example. Like here, I'm running triple Imperm because I don't want my opponent just summoning something and going crazy with a board. You know, I'm still running a lot of board hate, despite the fact that I'm running Sword Soul, which can still also be the break my board deck. So I'm running it basically to go first or going second. Now, if you were playing Sword Soul and you were playing the deck strictly based on going first, like I always want to go first, this is my going first deck. If I go second, I'm probably going to lose. I'm building the deck just for going first. You probably want to need as many imperms, and you probably want to be running evenly matched. So, you know, it's those ratios. Is it going first or is it a going second deck? And timing and where the choke point of your worst matchups are, learning all those things and perfecting all those things for your play style, for you as a player. That is how you can generally get better at the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But I know this is a really brief and kind of a simple explanation. I know people are probably hoping for more of like some magical explanation, but no, that's pretty much it. It's just knowing your matchups, knowing the ratios for the deck, knowing the choke points of your worst matchup or the other decks in the meta that you're going to worry about. And mastering those things will make you better at the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And with that, I will see you guys in the next one, possibly with my rat, because he is really winning a lot of attention lately. So I will see you guys then. Bye-bye.